Welcome to Leader Lifestyle Hub, where we are targeted for enhancing every day. And we are set the target of completing 200 book summaries in the year. On this journey, we came here on the 38th book. The name of the book that we have today is The Idea Factory, written by John Gertner. Let us see what this book is all about. This book is all about charts the influence of the Bell Labs, a research arm of telephony monopolists AT&T company. This innovative laboratory established in the 1920s, who was the source of dozens, if not hundreds, of technological innovations effectively ushering in our modern digital age. Let us see the small information about the author. Journalist and author John Gertner writes for the New York Times Magazine and edits for Fast Company. He grew up just around the corner from Bell Labs in Berkeley Heights, New Jersey. Let us take top 3 lessons from this book, The Idea Factory. If your vision is big enough, it can survive for over a century. Remember that if your vision is big enough, you can survive over for century, 100 years. Without Bell Labs, we wouldn't have computers, phones, radio, or the internet. Monopoly breeds innovation because it can use profits to fund science. Let us move on to the blog of the same top 3 lessons. This is the targeted audience for this book. The 23-year-old electrical engineering student who loves to tinker with technology in his spare time. The 31-year-old physicist, PhD candidate who works with the optical fibers. And anyone who does not know who invented the World Wide Web. For them, this book gives few powerful lessons. The Idea Factory explains how one company, Bell Labs, has managed to spearhead innovation in the communications industry for almost 100 years by dedicating themselves to science and research, thus producing a disproportionately big share of the technology that significantly shape our lives today. Let us listen from the John Gertner. We have now successfully passed all our deadlines without meeting any of them. Did any of us know that phones did not always make noises? Did you know that phones did not make always noises? Until the 1920s, you had still have to agree on a meeting time. When you wanted to call somebody, pick up the phone at the specific hour and start shooting into it until eventually someone on the other end would pick up. At the time, we used to have landlines. So before 1920s, there was no mobile phone. At the time, only landline phones are there. And if you call that person, you might never know whether the person will pick or not. Crazy, right? But that's just the tip of iceberg of crazy facts about the telephone and communications industry you don't know yet. In his 2012 book, The Idea Factory, John Gertner looks at the history of the Bell Labs, the company behind the telephone ring, among other things. A small review. Of course, Bell Labs did not invent all of these things alone, but the fact they had a hand in so many of the most crucial inventions which impact most of the time we are awake today is nothing less than shocking. I could spend hours researching the Idea Factory, an absolutely fascinating topic. As it turns out, this company has almost single-handedly invented modern communication technology. Let's see how that was even possible and what it took to make that happen. Let us see the top 3 lessons. Here are the top 3 lessons from this book. If your vision is big enough, it can survive for a century, over a century. Without Bell Labs, we would not have computers, phones, radio, or the internet. Let us see the third lesson. Monopoly breeds innovation because it can use profits to fund science. Ready to reshape your image of the history of communication? Let us see where modern technology really comes from. Lesson number 1. If you have a big and broad vision, you have a shot at impacting the world for centuries. Remember this. if you have a big and broader vision, you have a shot at the impacting the world for centuries. More often than not, the greatest inventors in history are forgotten. They either don't get credit for their inventions, or if they do, it is purely academic. Since their work is seldom tied to commercial ventures and big profitable businesses, their names aren't broadcast enough and end up hidden in the dusty pages of the history books. For example, do you know who Tim Berners-Lee is? The guy who invented the internet. And do you know who invented the urinal? Andrew Rankin. Do you know who invented the air conditioning, which we call AC in our home? It's nothing but Willis Carrier. But chances are you know very well who invented the telephone, Alexander Graham Bell. This is not a coincidence. He invented the telephone in 1876. In the 1880, he was awarded the Volta Prize of 50,000 francs, which is approximately $250,000 in today's money, which he decided to use to set up a lab dedicated to the research of analyzing, recording, and transmitting sound. He knew that he needed to keep inventing, make profits, and reinvent those in order to keep investigating and improving communication, which is exactly the vision with which Bell Labs was formed in 1925. If you really want to have an impact on the world long after you are gone, you cannot just say, I have invented the telephone, I am done. Your first vision must be bigger and broader than that. Even if he could not imagine what it would look like at the time, I'm sure Bell thought of a world in which all humans are connected over 100 years ago, and that's why his vision still lives in today in the form of Bell Labs. So have a broad vision so that you can short impact on the world for centuries. Let us see the lesson number 2. Bell Labs was majorly involved in inventing most of the modern technology, including the mobile phone, radio, computers, and the web. Bell Labs was set up as a subsidiary of AT&T, the 12th largest company in the world, which provides mobile phone services to every other person in the US. While they did do lots of operational work like improving and fixing phone networks, cables, etc., they also had a division entirely committed to basic research. Because they hired the greatest minds from the best colleges, they have always been at the forefront of innovation in communication, and among their alumni are 13 Nobel Prize winners, as well as 5 winners of the Turing Award. Among Bell Labs' inventions are the telephone, the radio, the radar, the nuclear reactor, the transistor, the satellite, the solar battery, the wireless phone, and the operating system Unix, at least 3 of which influence your life right this second. Currently, we are using Unix system. Even we are using wireless Wi-Fi. One of their alumni, Claude Shannon, came up with the information theory, the whole bits and bytes thing, which is how we measure data online today. Clearly, hiring MIT graduates paid off, but how they have been able to afford to hire such great people for such a long time. Just imagine hiring a MIT people or IIT graduates and affording them for high salaries and for a long time, how they are managing. Because they are always involved in inventing the most of the new technologies. So always strive for the inventing of the new technology. Lesson number 3. Monopoly is a great driver of innovation as it can use its big profits to fund great scientific efforts. Remember, I said Bell Labs originated from AT&T? No. Well, what you might not know is that American Telephone and Telegraph Company, which is nothing but AT&T, itself evolved from the Bell Telephone Company. the firm that held Alexander Graham Bell's original phone patent and commercially provided the first phone services to the people. Bell not only invented the phone, he also commercialized it. He knew that by keeping on improving his innovation or invention, he could always monopolize the commercialization of it, which in turn would allow him to spend a big chunk of huge profits on further research. This is the exact idea Peter Thiel talks about in 0 to 1, and it's all about what PayPal, Facebook, Google, and Uber have done to become so big in such a short time. As long as these profits are used to fund important research and science, which benefit the public, this is a good model. For over 50 years, AT&T was a tolerated monopoly, scooping up smaller, independent phone companies as they arose and cooperating with the US government to make telephone access for everyone easier. As soon as it was broken in the 80s, profits started to decline in 2006. And in 2006, the main campus of Bell Labs was closed. But the company does not give up. In 2016, Nokia acquired it with Bell's name on it. This company will probably keep innovating for at least another 100 years, monopoly or not. So remember this, monopoly is a great driver of innovation as it can use its big profits to fund great scientific efforts in the long run. So these are the top 3 lessons. Have a big vision or broader vision so that it can survive for over a century. Without Bell Labs, we wouldn't have computers, telephones, mobile phones, radio, or the internet. Monopoly breeds innovation because it can use profits to fund science. Thank you so much. See you in another book summary tomorrow. Until then, stay connected, keep progressing.